Are you ready to go deep? Welcome to the Whole Being Zone. Discussions on the day-to-day ways we strive to play big and be whole. Welcome to episode 131 of the spring 2017 Whole Being Zone. This is Wendy Reese, your host. Been on a short sabbatical, moving down to New York, and needed to take a little time because the transition has been back and forth, and we even fit in the Craft Brewers Conference down in D.C. during that time, the New England Brewers Summit. So there's been some interesting changes happening and very excited about it, but it took me away from doing this podcast. The format as I go forward on the podcast is going to change a little bit, but it still remains the theme of whole being. One episode a month will be a guest expert, somebody who really embodies or teaches or offers a specific gift on being whole. One episode a month will be a longer format story of the current American experience, because with the last presidential election and the whole theme about Make America Great Again, I don't believe that it wasn't great. I believe that we all have these challenges and struggles and successes, and it weaves in an amazing fabric to make an amazing country. I also think that there's a lot of stories that don't get told, and these are the stories that bring us together. And I want to be able to offer some of those to give a upfront, close and personal look at our fellow Americans. And then you'll get some short and sweet Wendy wisdom sprinkled in, because that's what you guys say that you like. We're kicking off this season with somebody I've been following / borderline stalking for about 4 years. I met her in an online community and we're both in, and I just thought she really had it going on, you know? I did several of her webinars, read her newsletters, and then lost track of her for a while. She reappeared with a newsletter recently on being brave. It really touched me deeply. I reached out to her, we reconnected, and she graciously agreed to let me interview her. Kristen Kalp is a poet, podcaster, and business coach who hangs out at kristenkalp.com, and that will be in the show notes. What I like about Kristen is the way that she shows up, unapologetically authentic. I shared with her a question that she posed in a webinar that I don't think she remembers posing, but it changed my life. And because I stole the question and used it with my clients, it changed a lot of their lives too. And I mention it in the interview today. We even have an impromptu guest appearance by Brewmaster Dave, who walked in during the interview completely oblivious that I was recording. Oh, the joys of living in a small New York apartment. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about a 7-day spring cleanse challenge that I'm offering. It's free, and it's 7 simple steps to cleanse your mindset and your habits for a fresh, new perspective. These are simple steps that you can incorporate into your day with very little time. They're relatively easy. Most of them are super easy, and they will be a game changer to you. You can get it by going to check out my brand new homepage on my website, and a little bar will pop up at the top about 10 seconds after you open the site, about the time that you finish watching the video that's on there. Enter in your email, and bada boom, bada bang, you'll get access to the cleanse. So just go to wholebeinginc.com. You'll see it. It'll pop up. Enter your email, and you're in like Flynn. Without further ado, let's get on with the show. Oh, 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 oh. Welcome, Kristen.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. Thank you. I'm glad that we have this time together. I have about a gazillion questions for you, but not enough time for all of them. So I'm just going to dive in. Tell us
Perfect.
Who is Kristen Kalp? Beyond the bio, beyond all of that, beyond the pink hair, who are you?
I think I'm just a person committed to doing life a little differently, even when that's really, really challenging, and even when it means that I say things that other people don't really agree with, and even when it means that I feel misunderstood. It's somehow better to do that than to kind of just go along with what everyone else seems to be doing or saying.
It sounds like you have a little bit experience with the latter of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, my mom is still kind of like, you make money on the internet. I don't understand why anyone would pay you because you have pink hair. Um, so, like, she sat me down a good 2 years into having pink hair and was like, I just want you to know that I've decided that you're not hurting anyone and you're a good person. So it's okay that you have pink hair. I was like, thanks.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. So, so yeah, I'm just a person that's kind of being the voice of like, you don't have to do it that way, whatever that way is. But if you're listening to the inner bits and inner wisdom in yourself, you can probably find a way that doesn't hurt you, that doesn't hurt others, to get whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah.
So you've been doing an internet based business that has evolved since I was introduced to you, probably back in 2012, 2013. So, do you mind telling us a little bit about your journey of where you started to where you are now?
Sure. In 2009, I decided to be a photographer. As a children's and baby, and then eventually dog photographer. And I was writing to people um, about ways to do business that were just a little bit better than what I was seeing, or I was sharing like in real time what I was learning as well. And it wasn't for a year that I was like, oh, I'm accidentally teaching. I do have a degree in that, but I always decided that like I'm just done with that forever. And I have a degree in writing, and I'm done with that too. I'm just going to be a photographer. And then the universe sort of did this like backwards checkmate of like, oh, you're already teaching, and oh shit, like stop me. And then eventually, I was doing some ghostwriting, and I got a book deal, and I had to choose between photography and writing. And like, I've wanted to be a writer and in writing and doing all the writing things since I don't know, since I could pick up a fucking pen. So that was an easy choice. And then I very slowly learned how do we make classes? How do we do that online? How do we make products? How do we make those online? And then how do we do that in a way that is completely aligned with who I am versus what other people tell me in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step process? That's very effective, but that doesn't necessarily always feel very good in being a part of it. So my journey has been from photographer to ghostwriter to writer and coach over the course of about 9 years now.
Nice. What was the impetus for Brave?
Brave was so I had an event called Brand Camp, which was the very last iteration of my business before I was like, this is too small to hold me. I'm going to have to just go to my name because I'm not going to outgrow that ever. Um, and I had this event called Brand Camp. It was beautiful. It was magnificent. People had these really great days. I learned so much. And I also lost 43 grand. And the
Hmm.
minute that I had paid back every penny of that 43 grand, which I don't know, maybe for the people listening, that's not a lot of money. For me, that was a tremendous amount of money, um, to just have that kind of to be up against that. And when I paid that back, that was the day that I was like, okay, now we do things differently. And we talk about all these immense quote unquote failures and the ways that they've made me stronger and braver and bigger in ways that I couldn't possibly have imagined before that went down. So the impetus for Brave is to say, like, yeah, I survived that. And I'm totally owning the fact that I had a business, have a business, lost a whole shit ton of money, paid it back, learned some stuff. And I'll share that with you so that you don't have to lose 43 grand to learn those lessons.
Yeah, I think that's the really interesting thing with the online business is the comparisonitis that we can easily get trapped into, that we look at somebody and because they are so beautifully branded, and packaged nicely, we don't really see what's going on behind the scenes. And they can come across as very successful and may or may not be. But then there's that part of us that says, well, I need to be there too. And end up tripping over our own desires for success and losing that authenticity and really tapping into and honoring our own intuition and our own guidance system. So how did you finally get to that place of you said that you needed to be in your own name because it could hold you. How did you get to that awareness beyond losing the money, because that's a painful lesson?
Yeah. I actually just had, speaking of my intuition, I just tapped into this moment where I was quite sure that I needed to gather the very biggest, smartest, bravest people that I knew personally without it being something that they paid for and without it being something that I charged for, that it was just this like, hey, let's rent a big house and just show our hearts to each other and see what happens. And there was this moment of them all just being in complete consensus about this is the next step. And I was like, but it, and so they're just confirming. You know how when sometimes you're like, oh, not everyone can see that. I'm just making that up. And then when everyone around you is like, oh no, it's really obvious, honey. It's so obvious. And you're like, okay, because I knew that would be a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of time, a sabbatical. I knew that it was going to be a ton of sort of muck to go through to say what stays, what goes, who am I now, what have I outgrown. Those are not easy questions. But once I decided, I took a 30-day, which turned into a 60-day sabbatical of just sitting and not working and not thinking of the next project and I'm a chronic producer. Like I will write and make and market and grow. And so that was actually really painful, but really helpful in terms of, okay, we're actively breaking the pattern of who we were and stepping into something different. And we're not sure what that is yet. And so let's enter into that indecisiveness, um, like with the support of those people that were in that house, and also all by yourself, because it's just one person in a business and nobody else gets to decide what I do. So that's both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Be like, oh God, I don't know. And eventually, if you sit with that not knowing long enough, you begin to get like just the tiniest inkling of like, oh, that could work. Oh, that feels really good. Okay, I'll keep that. Okay, that no longer resonates and that needs to go. And you begin to move through who you were into who you're becoming.
At the risk of sounding really stupid and redundant, I'm going to ask this anyways. What does it look like to just sit there for 60 days? I know you're not saying you literally just sat in a chair and did absolutely nothing, but what is the process of just sitting there and being with your own internal guidance system? What does that look like?
Oh God, it's terrible. It was painful and horrible. And people were like, and no one understands. Your friends are like, wait. So you're not working and it's terrible. And then they just kind of look at you and give you the finger. Like, what are you talking about? I would love to have 60 days off work. And I was like, but it isn't like a vacation. It was like, it's like pulling the engine of your business to the side of the road and letting everything just go all the way down. So all that momentum that you worked for years to build is just running out and you can feel it going. Um, I did a class. There was a class about the power of story with Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle Melton. I did that
Yeah.
class and I sat and I did a lot of walking. I went to the ocean. I pestered the crap out of my friends to play with me because I was all by myself. I wrote a lot of poems about how hard it is to just sit with yourself and not be planning or producing or looking ahead, to just be here, even though here is really uncomfortable. I did a lot of yoga and it was honestly, it was much, much harder than being business and just keeping up momentum. To lose momentum actively and on purpose is really painful, but I found on the other side incredibly helpful because you get all of the things that you have just always been a part of the system, so they stay in the system. All those things fall away, and then you're left with, okay, this, I'm just going to keep these three things, and then everything else can go. So my archive of 700 plus articles was whittled down to just a little over 200. Just immense amounts of things falling off and being refreshed and made into something new.
So it sounds like there was a lot of going back and reviewing past work to figure out what stays and what goes too.
Yeah, tons and tons of it. And I made the space to do that by saying these programs that I sold over the course of the last 7 years at Brand Camp are valued at, like something around the neighborhood of $2,700. You can buy literally all of them for $247. Don't ask. I'm deleting them. Don't ever think of them again. I don't want to hear about how you missed it and later, and that's a little gentler, but like there is no next time kind of a thing. And that
Yeah.
got me enough of a bumper to be able to take those months off and to not be just panicked about money, and then to know that I would come back up and start something new, and how much new and how much old I'm still playing with.
That's wonderful. You ask a question in a webinar that I attended of yours, and I think it was an absolute brilliant question and probably applies right now. What does your heart know that you haven't been listening to or haven't decided to take action on yet?
My heart knows that I'm a poet, and everything else is a way of paying bills.
Yeah.
That the softness in me is my strength, and that's the thing that we as humans tend to hide or to only reveal in very small quantities, because softness is weakness so often in our society. And in reality, softness and strength are they're two sides of the same coin. When you can stand firm in your softness and be like, I'm going to be the voice of love, and I'm not, especially in this political climate, I'm not going to contribute to the outrage and the noise and just the endless wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth. Like, I don't want to be that person. It's so easy to be that person, but I'm not going to be that person. That's to double down on that and to commit to being soft in the face of such incredible bullying on the part of our government is really, really difficult. But that's where I am right now. And that's
Yeah.
a really good question.
It is a really good question. It has guided me a great deal over the past several years since I originally heard it. What do you
Well,
wish
good.
more people? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying I'm glad that worked for you. That's a good one.
What do you wish more people knew and took action on?
That you don't have to play the game everyone else is playing in any capacity. The 6-figure and 7-figure game is fantastic if you desperately want to be a millionaire, but it's often not applicable, and it's often not all that interesting. That typically what we're being sold as female entrepreneurs is more, growth, 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 growth. And the answer might be that you desperately want those things. And the answer might be that you're told you want those things, so you desire them. I remember being in a group of incredibly high earners and saying, like, money just really doesn't do it for me. And the leader of the group was like, I just don't think you've earned enough money to know that. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. So I went ahead and had a 6-figure launch, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And I was like, yeah, it still doesn't do it for me. Like, if a 6-figure launch won't do it for you, I'm not sure what will, except that I was right when I said it the first time, which is that money is not my measure of fulfillment, that there are so many other things. Like, I got this email yesterday from a woman who, I was just very gently inviting people to remember that silence does not equal inaction, and that it's okay to be an introvert in times of marching and screaming and memes and loud, as long as you're taking action. And she just wrote this really soft, like, I've never spoken this way. I've never shared my political feelings with anyone. I'm 63. I feel safe here. And I cried. Like, that's far more fulfilling for me than, yeah, I made a lot of money, and let me tell you how much money I made. I don't find that interesting.
What do you wish more people would ask you?
To help them hear their heart.
And what do you
Because I
think
think
that would do?
I think lots of people stop listening, and at some point, your heart just kind of turns down its own volume because it realizes it's not getting anywhere, and then it goes completely silent. And that's when people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any idea. I don't know. I don't have an inner voice. When I do have an inner voice, it's like more cookies, more ice cream, more wine. Thank you. um, and then we go digging, and it'd be like, oh, there's this tiny little like whisper of a glimmer, and if you're just willing to listen to that, and whatever you find there will inevitably be frightening and difficult, but worth it. If you're just willing to listen to that, then everything else will change, and you can slowly turn up the volume until you can hear it yourself again. I'm really good at helping people kind of go all the way in and find the softest, quietest whisper and turn it up until they can hear it themselves without me helping them.
Oh, that is beautiful. One more question for you. What does whole
Sure.
being mean to you? Being. I know my accent is a little bit funny on that word.
Yeah, I think it means that all of your boxes are touching. So we like to make our work box and our physical box and our home box and personal box and sex box, and they're all related. So when people come to me and they're like, okay, well, my marriage is falling apart and I have $100,000 in debt, but I just want to talk about my business. I'm like, no. So a whole being means that it's all touching, it's all related. And whether or not you are feeding yourself nutrition and getting enough sleep absolutely affects your business, which absolutely affects your personal life, which absolutely affects your spiritual life and how much time you have to be in the world. So whole being is just the ability to keep an eye on how much time, energy, and money you have, and to kind of keep an eye on when you have enough and to enjoy that enoughness.
That is awesome. Where can people find you?
I am at KristenKalp.com, KristenKalp.com. That's me.
And there are some wonderful articles on there. Highly recommend you guys check her out, follow her. It's been a joy to be able to speak to you after kind of, stalking you for the last 4 years. Thank you for that opportunity. It's great to watch your evolution, and it's really inspiring. I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for stalking me all that time. I wish you'd introduced yourself sooner.
Well, thank you, Kristen. There you have it. I hope you liked today's episode. And if you did, please go check out Kristen's site. It's on our show notes page. And remember the 7-day spring cleanse challenge at wholebeinginc.com. And while you're at it, share this with a friend who needs it and give us a rating, review on iTunes if you're liking it. That helps us know that we're doing what you want to hear. Infinite love and gratitude. Till next time, be whole.